and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavor show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of...
Welcome to The Debate. Today we're looking at a collision, really, between the desire for control and the reality of chaos. We're dissecting the upcoming unveiling of the Peggy Woolly memorial installation at the Ambridge Rewilding Project. On paper, this is a local interest story, a village matriarch being honored in a conservation area. But if we zoom out, this is actually a perfect case study in the breakdown of institutional competence versus the demands of artistic integrity.
It's certainly a breakdown of something, I'll give you that. Though I suspect we're going to disagree on whether that breakdown is a disaster or maybe a necessary part of the creative process. We're looking at a situation where corporate expectations, timelines, press releases, VIP lists, are smashing headfirst into an artwork that simply refuses to behave.
Refuses to behave is a very poetic way of saying isn't finished. Let's set the table for the listeners so they understand the gravity here. The unveiling is scheduled for tomorrow. The guest list includes the great and the good of Borchester. The Borchester Echo has been, essentially begged to attend, and now the stakes have gone vertical because Borchester Life magazine is sniffing around for a potential cover story.
Which is every organizer's dream and nightmare simultaneously.
Precisely. And facing this wall of pressure, the organizers, Rex and Kirsty, are holding what can only be described as an empty bag. The financial backer, Justin, has effectively ghosted them. And the artwork itself? It is described in the briefing as a partial artwork. It is small, it is, by the organizer's own admission, underwhelming. So my position is that this is a failure of responsibility. You just can't invite the world to a celebration and give them a work in progress. It threatens the legitimacy of the entire rewilding project.
And here is where I'd pivot. I think viewing this through the lens of failure is a category error. You're judging a rewilding art installation by the metrics of a corporate product launch. The friction here isn't incompetence, it's the uncomfortable reality of, organic art. The obsession with scale Rex, wanting it 10 times bigger, it misses the point entirely. We aren't building a monument to a conqueror. We're honoring a woman who loved the land.
I understand the romantic appeal of that view. Truly, I do. But let's ground this in the reality of the attention economy. When you court the press, as Kirsty did, you're entering a transaction. You are trading access for spectacle.
Is it spectacle, though, or is it presence?
In the modern media landscape, they're effectively the same thing. Look at the specific complaint Rex has. He looks at the installation's stained glass set in storm-felled oak, and he is visibly deflated. He says it's not what he expected. He says, and I quote, "Everyone is wondering what it is going to be like." That anxiety isn't an artistic choice. It's a failure of delivery. A memorial needs to anchor a space. If you have to explain to the guests where the memorial is because it's so small, you've failed the fundamental test of a monument.
See, I think Rex's disappointment is actually the most interesting part of this data set. Why is he disappointed? Because he's been conditioned to believe that honor equals volume. He wants a monolith. He wants imported marble.
He wants visibility. He wants something that says this mattered.
He wants dominance. But look at the materials involved here. Storm-felled oak. That is wood that came down in a storm on this very land. That is a profound narrative integration. If you stick a 10-foot bronze statue in the middle of a rewilding project, you're fighting the ecosystem. This piece, wood and glass, is symbiotic. It's designed to rot eventually. It's designed to be part of the cycle. Rex is looking for a period at the end of a sentence, but this artwork is an ellipsis. It demands you lean in.
An ellipsis doesn't look good on the cover of Borchester Life, though. It looks like a mistake. And that brings us to the operational nightmare. You talk about symbiosis, but let's talk about the chain of command. Justin, the money man, the suit, has vanished. Kirsty is leaving voicemails into the void. Rex feels like a total fraud. Those are his words.
Fraud is a strong word, I grant you.
It's the only word. When your project lead feels like a fraud 24 hours before launch, your leadership structure has collapsed. They're discussing telling people it's canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. This is the definition of negligence. You cannot claim artistic integrity when the only reason you're leaning on the art is that the logistics have failed.
I think you're conflating silence with negligence. Is Justin's behavior rude? Yes. Is it unprofessional? Probably. But let's look at the result of that vacuum. Because Justin isn't there barking orders, what's happening on the ground?
Panic. Pure and simple.
No. Agency. Mick, Rex, and Kirsty are being forced to engage with the physical reality of the site. Mick suggests Rex could knock up some fancy prints. They're trying to figure out the lighting. They are problem solving. This is what we call emergent strategy in systems theory. When top-down command fails, the local nodes of the network, the community, have to activate. If Justin had sent a 30-page PDF on how to stand and where to look, it would be efficient, but it would be sterile. The anxiety they're feeling is the friction of taking ownership.
That is a very convenient way to frame abandonment. I didn't ghost you. I empowered you to find your own agency. It's absurd. And it leads to a very practical problem regarding the metrics of public art.
Go on.
The source material is specific about the lighting. The artist notes that the oranges, reds, and yellows of the glass only activate under specific conditions. You have to find a decent angle.
Which is beautiful. It implies the art is alive.
Which is a liability. You have a scheduled event at a specific time. What if it's cloudy? What if the sun is behind a tree? You've invited the press to look at a block of dark wood. Public art requires a degree of reliability. It needs to perform on cue. This isn't a jazz solo, it's a piece of infrastructure.
If you view art as infrastructure, then yes, this is a failure. But I argue that the fragility is the point. The fact that you have to hunt for the angle, that you have to wait for the sun, that creates a relationship between the viewer and the land. You don't just walk into a forest and demand the birds sing for you. You wait. This memorial forces the great and the good of Berkshire to stop posturing and start looking.
You're assuming they have the patience for that. These are people on a schedule. They want the photo op, the glass of sparkling wine, and the exit.
I think we underestimate audiences. We spoon-feed them content and then wonder why they have short attention spans. The partial nature of the work, the fact that it's just glass and wood, invites projection. It invites the viewer to complete the image. That's a far more active form of memory than staring at a plaque.
Speaking of underestimating people, I want to bring in a fascinating parallel from the source material that touches on this exact tension, the tension of when to intervene. We see a subplot involving George's health scare and the contrasting reactions of two characters, Susan and Azra.
Aha, the hospital scenario. This was a rich comparison. I was hoping we'd get here.
It really illuminates the core philosophical split we're having. On one side, we have Susan Carter. Susan is a retail veteran. Her philosophy is constructive criticism. She says quite plainly that if she walks into a shop and it's a mess or the staff are rude, she feels obliged to say,
"Introducing the Archer's mug, where elegance meets everyday comfort. Crafted from premium white ceramic, designed with vibrant peekaboo colors inside, simple, modern, and stylish. Start your day the Archer's way, with warmth, familiarity, and the comfort of voices you've come to love. As the stories unfold on the Archers, let this mug become part of your daily ritual, a small reminder of life in Ambridge. Practical for every home, dishwasher and microwave safe. Available in 2 sizes, 11 ounces and 15 ounces, designed to fit your lifestyle. Enjoy your favorite drink in a mug that connects you to Britain's most beloved countryside story, The Archers. For more information and to order your very own The Archers mug, follow the link below and make it part of your daily routine."
She's the customer who demands to see the manager, but with a smile.
but she's not doing it to be difficult. She's doing it because standards matter. She believes that if things aren't up to par, they need telling. My argument is that the rewilding project desperately needed a Susan. Someone needed to look at that small, partial artwork weeks ago and say, this is not good enough, fix it, make it bigger, finish it.
And then we have Azra. Azra is a trained doctor. She knows more about medicine than Susan knows about retail. And yet, when she's in the hospital with George and things are moving slowly, she stays silent. She admits she feels helpless, but she doesn't flash her credentials. She doesn't intervene.
Because she's polite or because she's scared?
Because she understands complexity. She knows that just because a process looks slow or messy from the outside, it doesn't mean it's broken. She trusts the system. She trusts the specialists. You want Rex and Kirsty to be Susan to scream at the artist to demand it be bigger. I think they need to be Azra. They need to sit with the discomfort of the partial artwork and trust that the artist knows what they're doing.
But that is a false equivalence. Azra trusted the hospital because hospitals have protocols, they have triage, they have safety nets. George got his scan because the system works. Rex and Kirsty are dealing with a system where the chief of surgery, Justin, has walked out of the building. Blind trust in a broken system isn't humility, it's negligence. George fainted, he needed care. If the system had failed him, Azra's silence would have been complicity.
But the system didn't fail, and that's the gamble. Intervention often causes more harm than the original problem. If Rex had intervened 2 weeks ago and demanded a giant stone statue, he would have destroyed the artistic integrity of the project just to soothe his own anxiety. Azra's approach is harder. It requires sitting in the helplessness, but it usually yields the correct result because it respects the expertise of the people actually doing the work.
Respecting expertise is fine when the expert is present. When the expert is hiding in a boardroom, refusing to answer calls, respect looks a lot like denial. And this brings us to the ultimate adjudicator of this mess, the external world. We have to talk about the external validation, or the external threat of Borchester life.
I suspect you view that email as a threat.
Please cease and desist was the auto reply they were hoping for. Instead, they get a photographer coming for a cover shot. If that photographer shows up and sees a small piece of wood that looks like a gloomy stump, that is public humiliation. It confirms to the entire region that this rewilding project is amateur hour. Reputational damage is real. It affects funding. It affects future permits.
You see a threat, I see validation. Why is the assistant editor intrigued? Why did they email? Because the unique nature of the installation traveled. People are tired of the standard. They're tired of the polished, corporate, safe memorial. We're living in a moment of authenticity.
You think they want a pile of lumber?
I think they want a story. Think about the visual. A close-up of rough, storm-damaged oak illuminated by a shaft of light hitting that stained glass. That is a stunning cover that screams Borchester life. It's rustic. It's real. It's not a plastic trophy. The magazine's interest proves that the outside world is actually ready for something nuanced, even if the internal team is too stressed to see it.
You are placing a massive amount of faith in the ability of a photographer to capture nuance in a chaotic environment.
And you're placing too much weight on the idea that bigger is better.
I'm placing weight on the idea that competence is better than chaos. We're circling the conclusion here, so let's try to synthesize this. From my perspective, this is a cautionary tale. While the oak and glass may be theoretically beautiful, the lack of a definitive plan disrespects the memory of Peggy Woolly. Winging it is not a strategy when you're managing a legacy. It treats the memory of the deceased as a sandbox for experimentation.
And my conclusion is that the anxiety is self-inflicted. It's caused by expecting a linear industrial outcome from a circular organic process. The storm-felled oak and the reliance on natural light create a memorial that is fragile, yes, but that fragility is the tribute. The mess is just the texture of reality. If rewilding teaches us anything, it's that nature is messy. Why shouldn't the art be?
That's a lovely sentiment to put on a plaque, provided you have a plaque big enough to read. But I think we can agree on one thing. The test is tomorrow. The test is whether the community and that magazine editor can shift their perspective. Can they stop looking for what is missing?
And start seeing what is there. The light, the connection, the memory.
If they can make that shift, you win. If they can't, and they leave confused and underwhelmed, then the institution has failed.
And isn't that the thrill of it? We have to wait for the light to find out.
Indeed we do. Whether you value the polish of a well-run shop or the wild process of an ecosystem, we hope this discussion has illuminated the trade-offs involved. Thank you for joining the debate.
Until next time.
So, what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just
And,
moving mics around.
So, what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the arches. Any
Are you what we
movements
call Foley then?
and- kind of. Yep. That's,
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
yep. That's the ball bar. That's.
This one.
Yep. That's.
Haley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline. I mean,
I think the Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community, at whatever